Meeting of the Indiana Arts Commission on Friday, March 8th. We are here in Bloomington, and we are going to start with the welcome from Mayor Carrie Thompson. And she coming up, I just would love to say I'm thrilled that she is the mayor. I worked with her a little bit in her prior role. My only disappointment in her becoming mayor is that it meant one of our agency heads over in the Office of Lieutenant Governor took her former position, and I had to find a new agency head. So all good, all good. It's always good to have friends in Bloomington. So good morning. Sure, yes.
Thanks, Anne. Unfortunately, fortunately for us, we have attracted a lot of great people to our cabinet here, and we're really thrilled to have great talent here at the city. And I know Penny Spinner's doing a great job with my former role in this. Sorry to leave you, I know, but also really thrilled to be at Indiana University. Yes. And I am just thrilled to welcome you all to Bloomington, although I see plenty of Bloomingtonians here on your commission. I am Carrie Thompson, and I'm the brand new mayor of Bloomington, where for decades and decades we have taken pride in the arts. And on behalf of our entire community, I'm really proud to welcome you here. I can't think of a better place, frankly, than have your meeting here. In Bloomington, we take the arts incredibly seriously, and we see the arts as part of our path to really vibrant economic development. It's woven into the very fabric of our city. It's the beating heart of what we do, and it creates a vibrant, diverse, and eclectic community that really celebrates life here in Bloomington and is able to create gathering places and gathering pieces for our community. We love it now. We're blessed to have countless community organizations that support art and artists in a myriad of ways. We have wonderful theaters, art galleries, music venues, and performance spaces. And frankly, I think next time you have a Friday meeting of this commission in Bloomington, it needs to be on one of our first Fridays. We do the art gallery tours that are now connected with IU into downtown on a real boulevard of the arts. And our thanks to Ed Conapolli and to Holly for helping to get those pieces connected and ensure that we were really working in a vibrant way together. We have an incredibly large population of creative people here, and I know that we're working with IEDC on a ready proposal that we hope will incubate even more artists here in our community. From the city government perspective, Bloomington is also deeply committed to the arts. In addition to the Bloomington Arts Commission and their great work, we have the B District, which is the Bloomington Entertainment and Arts District, and the City Council Public Arts Master Plan, as I think all cities should. All of this is to support the expansion of our arts community. Our city and our taxpayers are also actively supporting this effort with our dollars. When we build something new that is funded by tax dollars, public art is embedded into the project every time. We are currently doing that with the Hopewell Project, a new downtown neighborhood that will sit on the old hospital site and some soon-to-be built greenways as well. In fact, through the city's Department of Economic and Sustainable Development, we fund public arts projects throughout the year. We do this because Bloomington not only values art, but because our community understands the enormous impact it has on the overall quality of life our neighbors enjoy and our economy enjoys as well. Be it a sculpture, a mural, a statue, or another form, art can really set the tone of our community, inspiring people and creating pride and a true sense of place. Art attracts visitors and new residents who want to be a part of a community like this. We're proud of what this community has done to support the arts, but we're not done yet. There's still more to be done here and across the state, and that's why you're all here today. I thank you for your service to this cause and for the work that you're doing to support the arts and improve the lives of our citizens throughout the state. I look forward to our continuing partnership with all of you over the coming years. And I hope you have a wonderful day. We are blessed to have Maya as part of our community, and we are so thrilled that she is leading this charge. And we are grateful for all that you do to ensure that our future state is full of incredible gathering spaces and rich art. Thank you so much for having me this morning.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I also want to acknowledge Holly Warren, your Assistant Director for the Arts. That's a city position that is fantastic. We got to spend some time yesterday with her at the Waldron Center. Oh, are you going to say a few words, Holly?
Oh, yeah.
Great, thank you. I'm very good at improv. Yeah, that's right. Good morning.
Good morning. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to echo Mayor Thompson's thanks for all being here this morning. We're so happy to be here on the weekend. And I just have to say, Mayor Thompson has taken on the role of mayor. We just feel so empowered. We are so lucky to have her, and she's really going to continue to invest in Bloomington's legacy of the arts. We're so happy we're here. So I'm very lucky too. So as the director of the arts, my position is actually embedded in the Department of Economic and Sustainable Development. And so basically what that says is we do not have a vibrant economy if arts are not included in it. And I think that is such an important thing just to put out to our entire city. With Mayor Thompson's coming in, we also got a new director of Economic and Sustainable Development. Her name is Jamie Cooper-Smith, and she is really leading this charge for us that Mayor Thompson mentioned to get some 2.0 ready funds to make the arts incubator space. And I'm so excited. The thing we hear in this community time and time again as we're doing grant proposals and talking to folks who are about to graduate and use all the amazing opportunities and resources they have as students with studios and kilns and print shops at IU are, we just need space to make stuff. So I'm really excited to have the support of the student administration to find the funds and the space to do that. I'm just going to tell you about a few other awesome things we're doing now. So last night we had a great time with the Constellation folks. We love them so much. They have really, I always say, you know, the city put the money in there to rebuild the guts of that facility, but Constellation really loved it. And we're so happy with that. So they're doing amazing work. In addition to supporting that work, we have an amazing grants project here. We give out $140,000 of grants every year. We fund our projects, we fund 501c3s, and we fund a new parks from alcoholic emerging parks. And again, this directly to retain and attract young emerging that's it. Bring all stuff and empower us with the arts. As Mayor Thompson mentioned, we also have an amazing program. So that's an ordinance that was started by Mayor Sean Fernandez, and that says anytime the city invests in a piece of construction, 1% of that budget has to be allocated for the arts. That is super duper great. My dream is that just becomes a requirement of all developments, not just public developments. We'll get there in a couple of years. But other models where Thompson mentioned, we just put out a call for proposals to Indiana artists and artists of Indiana adjacent states to make a new piece of public art in the first part of the so we're super excited about that. The other thing I'll just mention very briefly is the new public art master plan that we released last fall. This plan has just an amazing definition of what public art is. And it is a definition that says public art is not just a sculpture that lands, that doesn't take into consideration the people in the community around it. When we do a piece of public art, it is a true public process where we get feedback from the entire community to learn what they want to see, what they feel truly reflects them. So I'm so glad that we have this definition of public art master plan. And in addition to just having that definition in the plan, we really see it as a toolkit because, you know, we have our public art projects that we work on, but again, I'm basically 1.5% department. And so we want to be able to empower our colleagues in the city to undertake some of these public art projects on their own with our guidance through this plan. And so this plan is also in part to businesses and neighborhoods to go out and create public art on their own. And when we initially released this plan back in the fall, we also released this like grant to be able to empower us to take advantage of that plan. We're gonna do that next year. We usually stay on last year, but again, I just want to thank you all so much for being here and enjoying our. That's it. Just thank you very much for making this all happen. She's the reason why my position exists. So.
Thank you.
And I just want to say that when I left the city, the budget we had for grants was 20,000 and now it's 140,000. So huge hats off to Holly and what she's done with her team to make the case to increase that budget by as much as she has. So huge debt of gratitude to her and her team. So
Great, thank you. Next, we'd like to welcome our new commissioner, Mark Maxwell. Would you like to take a moment and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, I'm Mark, and I'm from Jeffersonville, Indiana, which is Clark County. It's an interesting thing because our connection to most of what you see, TV, et cetera. Like I was watching the Indy news this morning, right? And it's amazing, just the kind of lay of the land. We're very Louisville Metro, right? So everything that we see or do has to do with Louisville. So I feel a little bit disconnected, but learning more about that. I am a musician. My family, my dad played drums on the Dick Clark Caravan of Stars. Has always been in music, and he's always on music stores. And so I have a music store in Jeffersonville, of which we just won Dealer of the Year for music stores worldwide, which is crazy. Like we went to California, we're sitting in this huge area, and they announced we knew we were in the top 100 because we do a lot, like we're very active. And so anyway, very proud of our staff and the people, everyone who's ever come before me, chopped down that gigantic tree that finally fell. So not that we aim to do so, right? We just wanted to do good work, and somebody said, good work. So
Congratulations.
anyway,
Great.
Excited to be here. I hope I don't get in anybody's way. Quite good at that.
Mark, we're happy to have you, and I am going to endeavor to not use very many acronyms today. I heard your concerns last night.
I was wondering about that. I thought maybe you could write a book or something. Just
Andre is gonna be working on getting some
reference.
documents, yeah, but all good, welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
We also have a new staff member, Lydia Campbell Marr, Communities Program Manager.
I'm Lydia Campbell-Nair. I'm the Community Services Manager for Indiana Arts Commission. I am coming from a nonprofit background, directly from a small nonprofit called ArtMix in Indianapolis, working specifically in disability justice and arts access. I also have an academic background in ethnomusicology and folklore, so I'm working on my PhD here in Bloomington, so it's nice to be here. Some of the stuff I'm working on immediately is trying to reach some of the counties where we are currently providing direct grants and support. We have 8 target counties, and I am working right towards them. You can see them up here on the map. Newton, Union, Blackford, Sullivan, Vermilion, Switzerland, Perry, and Washington County. And we are working really hard to just develop some new partnerships there and provide increased access to folks who aren't currently receiving support from the Indiana Arts Commission. So I invite connections from your regions and your areas. And please feel free to reach out to me. I'm always available via email, text, phone. Happy to be here.
Great, thank you. Next, Stephanie will call the roll.
Thanks, Ann. Chad Bolser,
Present.
Raina Bradley. I'm here. Greg Hall,
Here.
Renee Thomas here. Ann Penny Valentine,
Here.
Scott Wiley,
Here.
Mark Maxwell,
Here.
Lori McRobbie.
Here.
On the phone virtually, Jake Oakman,
Here.
Dave Heist,
Here.
Kelsey Pieper,
Here.
and then IAC staff, Jordan Adams, Jordan Adams, Artist Services Program Manager.
Eric Ashby,
Eric Ashby, Grants and Research Manager.
Connie Brom, Marketing and Communications Director. Lydia Campbell Mayer,
Lydia Campbell, Mayor, Community Services Manager.
Maya Michelson,
Maya Michelson, Executive Director.
Paige Sharp,
Deputy Director, Programs.
Andre Sanera,
Audrey Sanxonera, Deputy Director of Operations, and for the very first time, Stephanie Fendler.
Stephanie Fendler, Financial and Operations.
We are so happy for you, Stephanie, and pleased that you are here still today to serve in your prior role for the commission meeting. Thank you. Okay, next up, we have the approval of the agenda and December 8th, 2023 meeting minutes. You were provided the minutes previously. Does anyone have any changes or corrections to make to either? Yes. Okay,
Thank you.
we will make that change. Any other changes? I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Stephanie, will you call the roll?
Chad.
Aye.
Raina,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Lori. Renee. Ann,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Jake,
Aye.
Kelsey.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next up is our consent agenda. I'm going to read through the items submitted for commission approval, which are the fiscal year 24 year-to-date financials, the financial grant report late policy, the not in good standing policy, the calendar year 24 on-ramp cohort approval and seating funding approval to staff, calendar year 24, fiscal year 24 cultural district guidelines and seed grant approval to staff, calendar year 24, fiscal year 24 creative convergence guidelines and seed grant approval to staff, and the Fellowship for Creative Teaching and seeding the cohort selection and action grants approval to committee. The reports for review as part of the consent agenda, the Arts Trust Report, the Communications Report, Governor's Arts Awards, Hoosier Women Artists, Staff Update and Activity Report, External Partnerships Update, the 2024 Indiana General Assembly update, and the Lifelong Arts update. Does anyone have any items that they would like to remove from the consent agenda to add to the our agenda later in the meeting? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Stephanie, will you call the roll?
Chad.
Aye.
Raina,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Lori. Renee. Ann,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Jake,
Aye.
and Kelsey.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Now on to the interesting parts of our meeting. First up, we have the Committee on the Future and our first look at the fiscal year 25 budget.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, good morning, everyone. Andre Sanxonera, Deputy Director of Operations, and I am here to present you the first look of our fiscal year budget 2025, our first look for the budget. And before we go into all that still, I prepared a couple of slides just to provide you the 101 of basically how the state operates in terms of the budget and how the federal government appropriates funding for us, for the state as well. So State Budget 101. State runs a fiscal year from July 1st to June 30th. In the fall of an even year, we submit a budget proposal to the governor's office for review. The governor's office then reviews that over the fall and then submits it over to the General Assembly on what we call odd years or long session, which is what's happening next year. General Assembly is the one that reviews their budget and then with the work of the committees, both in the House and the Senate, then appropriates the funding for the Arts Commission. Around April, it's when the long session comes to the end and that budget is published by the General Assembly, then that gives us insight of what's going to be our biennial budget. Given that it's approved every other year, we approve 2 years at a time, so biennial budget for us. Wanted to give you a little bit more background also on what happens with our 9 accounting categories. So we have point 1, that is salaries for fringe benefits. That includes paycheck, benefits, health insurance, etc. I do want to point out that from the allocation that we receive from the state government, point 1 is separate from points 2 to 9. What that means is that the legislature appropriated for salaries, I cannot supplement that utilizing money from 0.2 to 0.9. So instead, I can utilize federal funding to use that, but I cannot use regular state funding from 0.2 to 0.9.
And that's true of most state agency budgets,
Correct.
standard practice.
So 0.2, that's services or cell phone subscriptions, IT services. 0.3 is professional services. So every time we engage in a contract with someone, that goes into professional services. 0.3. 0.4 materials, office supplies, gas and local car rentals, food supply, et cetera, that goes on 0.4. 0.5, AV equipment, IT accessories, we buy monitors or anything like that, that comes from that line item. 0.6, we don't utilize it at this, the IAC because we don't distribute funding for local government or other entities. 0.7, that's our money making, right? That's the money that we utilize for grants and services for our agency. So we utilize that money to give money to individual individual artists and arts organization. 0.8, that's indirect support, again, not used by us. That's when an organization utilizes money for funding, for SNAP, child welfare, rent assistance, et cetera. And then 0.9, most of the stuff comes here, so our shared services that we utilize with other agencies, like HR services, IT services, the infrastructure that we utilize to run our services in day-to-day operations, mileage, travel, registrations, et cetera. So that's a big overview of what's happening in our state budget and the economy. On the federal budget side, federal budget government runs from October 1st to September 30th of every fiscal year. The Arts Commission receives funding from the National Endowment for the Arts. That's the agency that provides the funding to us. The IOC submits a yearly application to the NEA every September. By April, we hear from the NEA in terms of when the award notification is and what that money amount is going to be for us. Then we work with the state budget agency, also known as SBA, to set up the proper accounting and tracking for the use of these fundings. And then that funding is available to us at the beginning of the start of the state fiscal year in July 1st. Questions so far? Perfect. So let's take a dive into revenue assumptions for us. So based on what we have approved on the 2024-2025 biennial budget, compared to the previous biennial budget, we see an increase of 24% for personal expenses. That also includes a COLA, cost of living adjustment, that the governor approved earlier this January to increase 3% salary rate for everybody to adjust for inflation. We are going to see a 46% in operations and programs. So again, back to what we said before, everything from 0.2 to 0.9, we're seeing a 46% increase on that. Another thing, that agency that I mentioned earlier, state budget agency, every year they hold 2% reserves. So out of our full budget, 2% gets reserved for a rainy day fund in case something happens or in case we need to tap it. So automatically, every state agency has to put aside 2% of the full budget into that reserve account. On the federal side, so we anticipate also having that same allocation from fiscal year 2024. And as I mentioned, that award's going to be notified to us next month of what we're going to receive for our next year. Questions on this slide? Thank you. So here's a look at the federal, the fiscal year, at a glance. So we see the left side, it's a full salary or the full revenue. On the right side, it's accounting that 2% that I mentioned, accounting the reduction from the state budget agency. So that includes, again, the funding we receive from the state at the top part of the slide. And then on the bottom is the federal fund and then the Arts Trust that we also have funding from the license plates revenue that we do through our program as well. So assumptions that we're doing on that. So we're going to be investing more into program funding. So this comes at the heels of the work that Eric and Jordan did. So thinking how we can improve more funding for artist services, more funding to work with Lydia as well in terms for communities, and then with Stephanie Haynes and arts education as well. So those are the three components that we're going to look for the next fiscal year. For program services, again, we're looking at capacity building to help arts organizations build more of the capacity building. And then we're also including funding to include for research project initiative. So Eric will be leading up to two project managements next year to do more research and build that wheelhouse in our organization. So here's a copy of the proposed expenditures. As I mentioned, it's broken down by the products, by the accounting period. So the first one, again, salaries and benefits compared to fiscal year 24, fiscal year 25. Services of other personnel, like I mentioned, IT, refreshing of the computers, phone. 0.3, programs and services. We do want to highlight here the orange and the purple. Last fiscal year, when I came with you guys, I mentioned that we received funding to two initiatives, one from the Department of Education and one from Families Services and Aid
Family Social Service.
Social Services Administration.
The mouthful. Yeah.
Part of the alphabet soup there. So we received that funding with them, and this year we're not accounting that into this budget because it makes it a little bit confusing, so we'll be having a separate one. Once we hear again, if there's a continued partnership with them, we'll include it in another spreadsheet because it makes our numbers a little bit wonky when you're working on interagencies agreements between the agencies. From this slide from point 3, I do want to show that we're, again, doing capacity building. So Eric's going to try to work more in real estate. We're going to try to work more with arts organization development. We're going to be doing a piece for arts education and after school research. And then that research initiative piece that I mentioned earlier that Eric's going to do as well. Point 4, material supplies. Point 5, equipments. Point 7, again, back to our grant money making, our piece. I do want to highlight here, this is an off year for arts operating support. So we will not be increasing that as of now. We're going to keep the same amount. The new program that's going to be in the word influx that's going to have is the arts project support, which applications close next week. Do you want to highlight here? So again, everything that's folded here, artsification, creative community pathway, creative community convergence, and then the 2 be determined community programs, accessibility, artist programs are what we're highlighting in new expenditures for this fiscal year. Questions so far in terms of grants? Thank you. As I mentioned, in direct support, we don't do that. And then admin operating expenses, the only thing that's new this year that we need to pay is our membership with the National Assembly of State Art Agencies. That's an agency that is a cohort group of all state agencies across the nation and territories. And then Arts with Web, which is a regional arts organization. So we have to include those 2 memberships this year. So here's the expenditures at a glance. Okay, so what's next? So we welcome your commissioner input and feedback during this budget process. Again, I'm going to come back to you in June, but by late April, staff will have more concrete numbers both from the state side and the federal government side. In May, we're going to make an expenditure plan develop, and that's depending again on that management reserve budget that gives from the state budget agency to determine how much money we're going to be actually able to utilize. We're coming back to you in the commissioner meeting in June for your approval. And then our fiscal year begins on July 1st of 2024.
And the committee on the future will dive into that on
In the
next
future,
meeting, and then also the executive
the
committee
executive committee as well. Yes.
before it comes to the commissioners, just so there are a couple of touch points where commissioners weigh in on things.
That is correct.
Great. Thank
Any other questions when it comes to this? Or sorry, yeah, and then biennial budget 2026, 2027. So this fall, Maya and I will be submitting our proposed budget to the governor's office so that we can plan off for the next 2 biennial years to be approved by the General Assembly next session by next April.
And it gets to be, you get to have a real fun time because you work that with one administration, knowing that another administration will come in on January 13th. And so hopefully, but it's a lot of great groundwork to lay, but then you.
Not knowing anything about that transition from this standpoint, is there information that you get in that transitional period of time? Like, hey, we think that 3% reserve is not good enough. It needs to be 8%.
Most of those conversations happen within the leadership in the governor's office. It doesn't necessarily trickle down to agencies.
Okay.
Until the budget until the legislature starts diving into it, and that's when.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of timing, like there's such a short amount of time between election and inauguration, and the legislature starts even before
Right.
the new governor comes in, so it's just a crunch of timing. I mean, you always try and have friends in the state budget agency that can give you heads up so you don't freak out when you see the first version of it.
We have a liaison with the governor's office, and she has sort of said to us that the process this summer will feel fairly consistent to previous processes, and that at least in her experience in transitions, that first year of a new administration tends to sort of take the recommendation of the previous administration because it's a lot to come in on January 13th and throw the old budget out and come up with something completely new. So,
But it is always possible.
it is always possible. Everything's possible, right? But the tendency has been in the past for the new administration to largely take what's been presented. So we're going to operate with that hope in mind. So
Great.
we'll see.
Any other questions?
Okay,
Thank you.
great.
So moving on, Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, please.
We're then to our agency goals for calendar year 2024. So every year, the agency establishes a couple of goals. We've been reducing it since my tenure here. Our tenure, Madam Chair, sorry. Okay, just a little loud, yeah. So these goals are what's going to be driven our agency. A little bit of recap in terms of our goals. Last fall, we presented our strategic framework for 2024-2028. So that is telling a lot and informing a lot of the decisions for this agency goals. And another thing that happened last fall is that the staff had a staff-wide staff retreat, office-wide staff retreat, where we were able to then discern what are the priorities based on the strategic framework and what are the things that we want to work. So with that, first goal is development and implementing processes and standard operations across the agency. So this is something that came along, but in our retreat is just trying to understand how everything gets done and how is the proper way documented. Again, with staff turnover and with having new people in the team, how can we document that and also make it smarter, not harder? Within the guidelines of everything else, right, to make sure that we are able to do our processes and do it in an efficient manner to both serve our agencies, but also our constituencies and our stakeholders and grantees. So making sure that the process is smoother, that it's easy to understand, and that we can get things done more efficiently. Goal 2, again, this is with the work that Jordan and Eric have been doing and other people in the staff, like Stephanie with the research, is developing and implementing response plans for that target investment area. So how can we utilize the knowledge that we're learning from our previous work to establish stronger ties and develop a stronger presence in Indiana's economy through the work that we do as an agency? Then amplify. So again, bringing back to that research and evaluation, how can we share that and become that knowledge expert leader to share that knowledge and be able to share it across sectors for us as an agency? So be more intentional about that and be more upfront with the things that we're doing and the results that we're getting from our program. So 3 short goals this year. Any questions when it comes to these 3 goals?
Okay,
Action item.
seeing no question, we have an action item to approve the calendar year 2024 agency goals. I will entertain a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Stephanie, will you call the roll?
Chad?
Aye.
Raina?
Aye.
Ray?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Lori?
Aye.
Renee? Ann?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Jake?
Aye. Aye.
Kelsey?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Excellent. Next up, Eric is going to talk us through the strategic framework evaluation plan.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. The strategic framework Andre mentioned earlier, we have these impacts associated with that, and part of measuring our progress toward those impacts, but also helping guide how we make strategic decisions in the interim as we move toward those impacts. We developed some key performance indicators to help us along that path. Big thank you to the whole staff for their conversation and input around all of this. This was a full team effort, so I really appreciate that. We did some program mapping leading up to this, where we looked at our programs and how they fit under the priority areas and the impacts of the strategic framework to inform some of the key performance indicators you're going to see. And in your package, you'll see they're split into 2 groups. We have a more exhaustive list and then a core list. And so the ones we're going to talk through this morning are the core ones that we're going to make sure we're capturing and reporting on annually to the commission, that are really going to be the biggest indicators of our progress towards some of those key impacts. And this is used to benchmark progress and help with strategic decision making. So diving into impact 1, this is about access. And we're looking at number of counties that we're directly getting support into, which is connected to every county funded. We're looking at the number of activities that are taking place across the different counties. And we're looking at the number of accessibility focused projects as we grow the accessibility support. This is for folks with disabilities working on grants to directly support organizations and their capacity building around accessibility resources. And with all of these things, they'll be in the context of prior years. So what you're not seeing yet is where we have been and and then how we've improved over time. So think about when you see these numbers, they'll be in context of what it looked like in previous years, so you can see growth over time. And at the next commission meeting, we will have sort of targets for how we want to see these numbers grow. Impact 2 is new populations of Hoosiers experiencing meaningful learning in and engagement with arts and creativity. We're gonna make sure we're tracking the number of first-time grantees that are new to the IAC, and I'll give you a sneak peek. APS so far has a lot of new folks in draft, so we're really excited to see that. Number of grants by the total dollar amount and type of discipline. So this is looking at the different types of organizations and artists that are receiving our money, wanting to make sure that there are a wide array of folks that are receiving support. And then the primary population benefit is looking at rural counties served and underserved populations, make sure we're reaching those new populations as well. And Raina brought up a great point in some of the committee meetings about what does meaningful learning look like. And so that will look slightly different for each program that we'll be making sure we're asking about and evaluating on the final report to see how people are meaningfully learning and growing their capacity and understanding through our program. Impact 3, Indiana artists build towards successful careers in our state. We're looking at the dollars invested in individual artists, especially as we roll out some new artist services programming. We're looking at the total investment in artist entrepreneurship from IAC partners. This is something that will sort of be captured on a rolling basis as things like Ready and other investments are coming out to make sure we're understanding what the full funding ecosystem looks like for individual artists. And we're also looking at the hours of technical assistance that the IAC or our partners provide to artists. This might be helping them with grant applications or referrals, things like that, which is a piece of what we do, but is not something we've historically tracked in much detail. Stephanie, Jordan, and Lydia, they spend a lot of time talking with people individually. And so that's a key resource we provide. So we're going to try to make a low barrier way to track that internally so we can talk about that with you and our external stakeholders. And then Impact 4, Indiana's arts providers have expanded opportunities to enhance the quality of life in their communities, looking at the dollars leverage beyond the grant awards. So this is, we give a $4,000 grant, but the total income for the grant's looking like $8,000. They're leveraging that grant to bring in additional investment in what they're doing. So we're going to be tracking that. A number of sustained creative aging projects. We have a lot of lifelong arts work going on right now. We're working with the University of Indianapolis to evaluate that program. So we're going to be checking back in with those folks 6 months, a year after they've done their project to see if some of that programming has stuck and they're continuing to do it beyond their time engaging with the program. And then we're also looking at the Universal Health Survey, which is also part of the creative aging work. And this is a short form survey that is used all over the nation to sort of give a quick point in time diagnostic of how is your health right now. And so we're doing a pre and post on that. That'll provide some statistical understanding of how creative aging has improved quality of life for older adults in India. Any questions so far? Impact 5, this is a broad recognition of arts and creativity's value for Indiana. This is dollars invested in arts and creativity outside of IAC programs, and part of what Andre mentioned about contracted research earlier. One of the things we're looking at is really working with some partners to understand what the full funding ecosystem looks like across the whole state, across private and public, to see where there might be gaps and where that money's going, who's receiving it, so we can better make strategic decisions in regards to our framework, but also program development, capacity building, so on and so forth. And I asterisk that one because it's not something that's necessarily directly tied to IAC programs or services, but our hope is with our ongoing work, we'll see the full funding ecosystem for the arts grow and become stronger throughout the course of the strategic framework life. So it's not necessarily directly tied to our programming, but it's an important metric in understanding the environment we're operating in and what direction we're going. The number of non-arts and artist grantees, and this is a piece of recognition because it's folks that aren't necessarily engaged in the arts in their day-to-day, but they see value in it for the work that they're doing. And so we have APS is a great program for this. We have a lot of libraries and other different types of organizations that aren't necessarily arts organizations by definition, but they're accessing our resources and utilizing the arts to advance their work. And then lastly, per capita funding compared to peers. This is NASA. This is what our appropriation looks like year over year, which also speaks to recognition by the General Assembly and the people of Indiana around the value of arts and creativity in the state. So that's another one not necessarily directly tied to funding, but an important environmental metric to have an understanding. So next steps, we're gonna be finalizing any additional KPIs beyond these core ones based on staff capacity and what's possible, how programs develop, all that jazz. We're going to capture the baseline, so we have targets for growth over time, establish internal standard operating procedures to make sure we're tracking these continuously, And then you'll see reporting on this annually to see that progress towards some of those targets. So that's what I've got. Any questions or concerns or comments on this? Okay.
Great job putting all that together, Erin.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's really great. Good work. Okay, Andre, Commissioner Handbook Revisions, Work Study Group Invitation.
So this goes again back to that goal one of creating more of a standard operating procedure and making sure that we are keeping things updated as time comes and making sure that information is updated or refreshed, especially as we work with the commissioners to making sure that the information they receive is easy to understand, easy to digest, and make it accessible for them to have a full spectrum of the day-to-day with us at the Arts Commission. So I share this invitation both for all the different committees to invite individuals who wants to work with me in this process. So far, I want to take Dave Heiss, Jake Oakman, and former Commissioner Nancy Stewart for signing up with us. We'll be working with this afterwards, establishing more of revising those structures and policies, and then coming back for you either the June or September meeting with more information and approval, having that meet with you. But based on that, handbook and making sure that it's updated and also making sure that that information is updated also in the commission portal to make sure that that works for you all. Any questions?
You have 3 solid volunteers, but if anyone else is really wanting to join in.
Do you need more?
I don't think so, but again, I want to offer the invitation for everyone. Yeah. I am good with the 3 ones that I appreciate. I appreciate especially even Nancy coming back and
Yeah.
being able to help us with that. So that's great.
We didn't want you to lose out, Jen.
Right.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
This is your thing here.
I think I like better the good hand.
But I will be in that process once we have that final draft, just meeting with you in terms of that, well, just to see, hey, what works for you and what do you like to see from this draft version that it's not there.
Great. Thank you. Okay, next up, programs, grants and services. Arts Program Services redevelopment update.
This is the fastest we've ever gotten to. We're saving the good stuff for the middle part here.
So just very briefly, the Arts Project Support Grant Program is one of our few core grant programs that we offer every year. And we did a review to evaluate the program because we've been offering it the same way every year, just to understand where areas we could strengthen. So just a update of sort of the progress we've made in that regard. We met with somebody from the National Association of State Arts Agencies who really knows the state agency world and how funding operates, and provided us with some pretty sage feedback, which was wait until you get your regional arts partner review completed, because that's something in progress. Another thing that we've been doing for many years, but haven't really evaluated. And so that individual will have that completed to report to you in June, at which time we'll have a sense of direction for arts project support. But the colleagues also had a recommendation that it sounded like of it was maybe a recruitment challenge for us to consider. And if we really wanted to simplify the application to just do that. So that's still in the hopper for consideration. So that's really sort of the sum of that. Any questions? Great.
Yes, so next up, program guidelines replacement.
Great job. Okay.
I took your visual cue that I was trying for me to read the next thing on the agenda. Quick like that.
Great. So we have our program guidelines for any of our funding programs. They are many, many pages, and they include a lot of information. They need to include a lot of information. They're the instructions for anybody who's interested in applying, and they're the policies that grantees follow if they are funded. So they're very rich and dense with information. And what we do is we bring the guidelines in front of the commission for approval, after which we're able to launch the program, which makes sense. Except if you really think about it, we're really shoehorned into those 4 times a year in order to launch the program. It always has to coincide with the commission meeting. So we're proposing that rather than looking at these guidelines, it's very long and dense, full of information, to provide you guys with a framework for a program to approve. That is the bird's eye view, the synopsis version. And there's some key reasons that we want to change that, which is number one, to align our capacity with each program's timeline and not be held to the 4 times a year for the commission. And it provides us an opportunity to really flex and innovate for these programs as time like dictates to us or circumstances dictate to us. And we've run into the circumstance many times within the last year or 2, which is why we're here today. And the most important part to me, which is to leverage your input at the very beginning rather than the end when it's really kind of too late. So we can get your feedback, we can address some things that we're struggling with and maybe even get a study group together. So the examples, the framework will include, information, just overview about the program, the goals, what we're trying to do, who's eligible, basic timeline, like an award size range, and any notable changes from the previous year. So it really should be just a page, maybe not even a full page. And this is an example of the information that you would see, starting with our other core program, Art Organization Support. So you see program overview, who's eligible, the goal of the program, the outcomes we're looking to achieve, basic timeline for it, the award range, and any change from the previous year. And this is actually an example that quite possibly is something we could put in front of you in June, which we normally would have you approve the full set of guidelines in December, right before it launches. So that is really what we're asking for today, is approval in that direction. We've gotten support of Programs, Grants and Services and the executive committee.
I think the word that you've avoided saying is, we've been micromanaging this process as a commission for quite some time. And well, and the role of the commission should be focused on strategy and the big picture items. And this was really, really in the weeds detail work that all great reasons to move this way. But I just wanted to acknowledge that we had been micromanaging this process and it's time for us to get out of that business.
Well, and it's nice to be able to leverage each of your unique lenses from where you come around the state to inform our thinking, because that's really what community engagement is about. You guys are all incredibly valuable, intelligent people, and I think this is such a great direction for us to go to.
And we trust that the staff has the ability to take those higher level pieces and let you execute on the details associated with that. So as such, I will entertain a motion to approve.
Can I ask a
Yeah.
question? Which is just that for anybody who hasn't had micromanager read all the details, the full descriptors are on the website, yes. In other words, it's.
Oh, yes,
It's
yes,
all
yes.
information that they will.
Yes, oh yeah,
Should.
Yeah. yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Mhm.
Full experience.
Yeah.
Our, where we're, our.
Yes, right, exactly. We'll still have a very dense, full set of guidelines because the applicants and grantees really need that information. That's what they're being held accountable to. But that will come way later.
We're also beginning to talk about the standardization of what those guidelines might look like so that people who access them can immediately go to pertinent information that is more usable and readable and things like that. Because our guidelines, although they follow a somewhat standard format, they can be a little bit all over the map. So providing some visual cues to folks about who is this for, what's the dollar amount that's sort of quick and digestible is something we're also thinking about sort of for the next iteration of these, particularly these core programs.
You mean for the folks who are looking to get the grant?
Yes, absolutely.
That's my biggest
Yes.
concern.
Yeah.
I look at it and
Yes, it's,
great to me when I read
It's-
some of this
yes.
stuff. I'm like, I have no
Yeah.
idea
Yes.
who's good for this, and so. you can Check the box, yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's me, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
Right, or no. If any one of these three boxes are not checked, then you're not right for this grant. And that, I hate to say it like that.
Yeah.
You know, I come the street and then that's.
But that's a great point. I mean, you shouldn't have to read 12 pages in to
Right.
identify whether you're eligible for a
Absolutely.
grant and how
Oh,
much
yeah.
money. So yeah, the
That's-
first page should have all the key pertinent information in your content.
That would be the most wonderful thing.
Yeah, and,
It's-
yeah, and presented with as few words as possible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Amen.
So they're not like,
Yeah, like, so yeah,
Right.
maybe some graphics. I don't know. We'll see. It's not gonna go crazy, but that's the direction we're headed in.
Sure.
Great. Okay, I will now entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. I will ask Stephanie to call the roll, please.
Thank you. Chad.
Aye.
Raina. Greg.
Aye.
Mark. Lori. Renee. Ethan.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Dave.
Aye.
Jake.
Aye.
Kelsey.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Artist Services Needs Assessment Update.
Yes, I can.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So artist needs assessment, we're gonna do a quick recap before we jump into the actual survey results. Just to refresh your memory on what we've done so far to lead up to the survey. If I know what I'm doing with the quick. What am I doing?
You're doing that?
Yes.
Ta-da.
Yeah.
Okay, so the goals of the artist needs assessment was to create an opportunity for the artists in our 11 regions to connect with one another, also to provide them a forum, a very low power forum for them to voice their opinions and concerns. Speak up, yes, sir. And then also just to inform our new services that we are going to design to speak to their needs. With that being said, this chart is a little hard to read, but these are the individuals that were involved in the process. The first is us as the Indiana Arts Commission, where we designed the demographics and we're trained to facilitate those convenings. We then also had our regional arts partners who were hosts to then go to our next person, the community organizer, who invited and recruited all of the artists that were involved in the artist needs assessment convenings. And then artists, they were there, they were present, they were paid for their thoughts and opinions. And so we just really had great conversations. We had some questions that we asked that we'll probably get to in just a minute. But they were just there to speak and tell us what they thought. And this all informed the research that we did as well. We recorded all of the listening sessions, we transcribed all of the listening sessions. And then we went into analysis that informed the survey that we are going to talk about a little bit later. And then right now where we are is pulling out those key themes, and then we'll, you have the final report in your hand as well. Any questions on that? Okay, who participated? So we had about 150 artists combined in all 11 regions with 400 pages of transcription. So that is the amount of conversation we had. Great conversation indeed. And so we had as young as 16 all the way up to a young 97. Eric got to meet that 97-year-old who drove to that convening. And then we had about 36% that participated in the rural areas, as well as 64 in the metropolitan urban areas. And so this kind of reflects our makeup of our state as well. And then about 31 participants identified as BIPOC, also in line with our state population as well. And then 59% female, 38% male, and then those who identify as non-binary at 3%. So we were very intentional about these demographics. We pulled data from our census material, and so we wanted to kind of reflect what our state looks like as far as artists are concerned. And we did a pretty good job on hitting those targets. And so from those conversations, we put out these key themes: networks and connection, marketing support and education, financial support and education, local investment in local arts. So that meaning local government and local businesses that are directly invested into those artists in their area, and then affordable and accessible space to create work, whatever it may be. And so we pulled these things into our survey, and these were the exact things that we kind of dove deeper into in our survey. And I'm gonna pass it over to the guy with the answers.
I'm gonna talk a little bit about the survey. There is a sheet floating around in between that has some of the graphs. We're gonna talk about it in a second. You don't need to look at it right now. I'll tell you when we're there. We designed the survey based on the listening sessions, and so we were all structured around those themes to dive in and really figure out to validate what we heard or add additional things like, you know, I think you're missing this, or I think there's other things that you want to consider. So that was the purpose of this survey, and it was distributed to everyone across the state. It was open on the website, emailed out, blasted as many places as we could. And we asked about geography, where they're at in the state, the county of residence. We asked about their artistic discipline. We asked about their career stage, where they were at career-wise. We asked about their entrepreneurial identity. Do they identify as a small business owner, entrepreneur? We asked about their familiarity with business resources in the state. And we asked them to rank order those needs based on that, what we heard in the listening session. And then we gathered some additional feedback, which was plentiful. So we got 581 responses, which we were really pleased with, especially for a survey. It can be really hit and miss. So really grateful to Connie's work, helping to push that out. And we got a wonderful response rate. 70% of Indiana counties were represented in there, and we had 22% that were living in a rural county, which mirrors more or less the state number as well. The survey results, and this is by region. The blue lines are the percent of respondents by region. The orange line is the state population by region. So we took the counties in the region, added up the population in there, and that's what you're seeing in the orange line. And so the thing I want to point out on this is that Region 7, you can see there's a lot of respondents from Region 7. That's the Indianapolis area. It includes Marion County. We'd expect that, but it's right in line with the proportion that's of people that live in the state. So that orange point is right at the top of the blue point. So while there are a lot, it's not disproportionate to the state population, which is good. Here is the map that shows the
Would you go back and point out maybe where we saw some under regions?
So interestingly, Region 1, which is Northern Indiana, Gary area, definitely did not see as strong of a response from that area comparatively to the percent of total Indiana population in that region. And then Region 4 as well, which is Lafayette area, also is a little bit lower. Some interesting things that were over the top. Region 8, which is blue, where we are here, had a very strong response. Thank you, Holly. And then Region 9, which is Columbus area, also had a really strong response. I did Region 12, Madison area as well. All have little hubs of artists. All of those have sort of key cities in there that have a lot of hubs of artists. So saw strong responses in there. Some sections of more rural regions were a little bit harder to get responses that matched the percent of total Indiana population. But we did have representation from every single region, which was encouraging.
And maybe you'll get to this, but was there the county breakdown also or not?
There is a county breakdown, yes. Here's the county breakdown. It's sort of a heat map, so the darker the color, the more people who filled out the survey. So there's some you'd expect around Bloomington, Columbus, New Albany, Evansville, Indy, of course. So you can sort of see where in the gray is where we didn't get any responses. So you can see some of those holes mirror every county funded, but we actually did get a couple of responses from some counties that we are on the every county funded list. So pretty decent coverage for a survey. It was
Yeah. Is there a way to go with another breakdown that you could share eventually with me? I don't know if anybody wants, but I did.
Yeah,
absolutely. So in other words, the 7 counties that I am around, I would love to kind of go
county by county.
Where it came. This is what's strong.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it would be good for me. And like I sent this out to everybody that I knew had anything to do with arts to say, please take this.
Yeah.
And I just want to see what. Right.
Perfect. We absolutely can get that to you. All right, so we're going to move into some of the results. Bear with me. It's a lot of numbers this morning. This is by career stage. So we asked folks to to identify with one of these areas, sustaining, scaling, hobby, or emerging. And interestingly, kind of surprisingly, only 10% of the respondents identified as hobby artists. Everyone else was generating some level of revenue from their creative practice, which was really interesting to see. With emerging being the biggest group that responded to the survey. Do you consider yourself an entrepreneur or small business owner? 60% said, yes, I do. 25% said no, and 15% were unsure. So a majority consider themselves an entrepreneur or a small business owner. Then we asked about, do you engage or have any familiarity with Indiana Small Business Development Centers? These are all over the state. This is the most broad resource that the state offers on small business development. And people said, no, we don't know what those are. We haven't accessed their resources. And I will say, among the people who said, yes, I do consider myself a small business owner or entrepreneur, 80% of those folks don't access SBDC resources, yet consider themselves an entrepreneur or small business owner. So this is one of the key things I think came out of the survey, is this sort of disconnect between what I'm identifying as and the things that I might be seeking and my familiarity with business resources that might be in my community that I'm not accessing.
And I also want to point out that there's a disconnect between the state's economic development strategy, which is highly focused on entrepreneurship, and their ability to reach a significant sector of entrepreneurs, creative entrepreneurs. So we'll be sharing this information with IEDC, Indiana Economic Development Corporation, quasi-agency of the state government, who works in economic development, who provides these funds these small business development centers, as well as other entrepreneurial career-focused training and opportunities. So just wanted to jump in with that additional.
And I'll add one more thing, in that those services are all free.
Yeah.
Which is really, because if you're thinking that maybe there's a barrier to artists and it's financial, which is commonly associated, that is not.
I'm wondering if there's a barrier of capacity though, because I know that, so for, I don't know, for 4 years or so, I worked out of our urban enterprise association, had a lot of students who were writing their business plans, either for creative ventures or whatever else. And when I pointed them to our local SBDC office, most of them didn't get a response.
Yeah, I've heard about that office in particular.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a great point, Raina, and I think that,
they're supposed to respond by law, is my interpretation.
yeah, they are. And so, and we have done some sort of partner programs with other SBDCs around the state. And Jordan, you want to share your sort of experience kind of with those groups?
They've been involved in on-ramp at one particular cohort. We also did the Next Steps programs. That was a direct partnership with SBDC. But right now, I think this is more so the opposite perspective of the artists knowing them. Right? We'll get to the opposite end of where the SBDC is aware of the artists.
I was thinking about that 37%.
Yeah.
That know but haven't accessed, and wondering if that percentage of that them actually reached out but never received a reply.
Yeah.
And I think there might also just language barrier, understanding of each other's capacity in another sense of what each other is trying to accomplish.
Sure.
This was telling, I think.
Yeah.
So here's the response by artistic discipline. We chose these disciplines based on the census groupings. It's not great, it's what we got, but to compare it to sort of state numbers and to match it to what we did in listening sessions, we kept it the same. We had another category where we got all sorts of different stuff. And so I just smushed that into the other category. A lot you could probably categorize under one of these areas. A lot of fine artists, a lot. And I think that reflects a lot of the individual artists who tend to gravitate to our programs tend to be visual artists. So that was not a big surprise, but that was the discipline breakdown. Okay, oh, it's just a little small. So we asked people what types of local organizations and groups are you connected with or support you as a practicing artist. So it's not SBDCs, those are at the very bottom. That sort of, but what was coming in overwhelmingly across all different ways I broke out the data, whether it be by career stage or discipline, local arts organizations, art critical, support anchor organizations for individual artists in their communities. And this was overwhelmingly the top across all of them.
Also, none of the above is pretty high in there.
None of the above is high, and it's really high for hobby artists, which I'll show you in a second. So the top four there, local arts nonprofit organizations, art associations and clubs, local businesses and local arts agencies were the top four. Those were the top four across the board, anywhere we divided the data. Sometimes there's a little shifting in there, but those were always the top four. So when we look at this, and this is broken out by the state career stage, you're seeing the top four again. One thing that I do want to point out is that if you look for none of the above, and then you look at the first column, that 28%, that is by far the highest. So hobby artists are, we're not seeing, I think this might indicate that there aren't a lot of support resources for hobby artists, as I think a lot of emphasis has focused on career development and business support. It seemed that it was coming through that some hobby artists didn't have the same supports that they maybe once did, or weren't seeing that represented in the options we provided. But again, those top four local businesses, local arts organizations, you can see they're coming in overwhelmingly as the top one across all the different career stages. Okay, now if you do have this nearby, these are the charts that are on this page in order. And I wanted to go through these. These are the needs. So out of the listening sessions, we developed some core needs. We put them in the survey and said, what's most important, what's least important, drag and drop, rank them in order. And this is ordered in order of people who said it's most important, all the way down to the people who said this is least important. So that first line, financial support and education, was the one that had the most people say this is most important. The more blue there is, that's the people saying this is most important. And then what was coming in last was marketing support and education. Now there's a little bit of nuance here. I want to point out a couple of things. One is that networks and connection, one of the surprising pieces is that there were more people that said it was least important than there were that said it was most important. That light blue at the very end, quarter of the respondents said networks and connection is not that important to me. That's least important out of these options here. Interesting, not necessarily what we expected, and sort of a disconnect from what we heard in the listening sessions. So we're going to dive into that a little bit. And the other thing I want to point out is affordable and accessible space at a real divide. You can see a lot of light blue at the end of that one as well. So there's a real split opinion on people's perception of importance and their artistic career related to that as well.
And you'd say, and remind me, Eric, I think there are significant regional differences in that artist space.
There are.
Yeah.
It's different by discipline, and it's also different by career stage and by metro and rural. So we're going to go through that here right now. And the N number is the number of people who identify as rural. So we had 127 rural respondents. And so when we break it down by for folks responding from rural counties, networks and connection starts to look a little bit different. And it's a little bit more important there. And it's actually right neck and neck tied with financial support and education in terms of people saying this is most important. And then you see affordable and accessible space becomes even less important for the folks that were responding from rural communities. So of course, this is a group of people. It's not, it's not blanket statements for all artists in Indiana, but this is what we're seeing in the survey. Metro areas, very much so near the aggregate results, which is what you'd expect because we had 454 folks responding from metro areas, so the majority of the survey respondents. So this sort of mirrors what we saw in the aggregate. Nothing too crazy to point out. Okay, so now we're looking at those same needs broken down by career stage. So here's the hobby folks. I think one of the things to note here, of course, is that networks and connection is most important to them. And they rated that higher than any other group. And affordable and accessible space, while it's down there, while not as many people said it was first, if you add the blue and the orange bars together, which is people who said it was either first most important or second most important, it's actually pretty high. There's a lot of blue and orange there. So while it is lower there, it's actually, a lot of people actually view that as a pretty high priority. So it's not necessarily fully represented. Along with that. Emerging artists, these folks, finance and financial support and education came in up top, as the networks and connections. And networks and connection was neck and neck, so that was also pretty important there. So you're seeing networks and connection is pretty important to hobby and emerging artists. And the other ones are a little bit different. Local, it's interesting, local investment is pretty low for hobby and emerging artists, and you're going to see that start to creep up as we move up in career stage. That's sort of confidence building, like, yes, I should be invested in by my local organizations and government. So here's scaling artists. Financial support coming in first by a good bit on this one, and affordable and accessible space had a lot of folks that meant that least important. So as we move out of the emerging side, space became a little bit less important, and networks and connection became a little bit less important. Local investment in local artists starts to get bigger. We're going to see that continue to climb. Sustaining artists, financial support is up there, and then local investment from local artists. They're at a more advanced career stage, and they want to find resource and investment in what they're doing. And networks and connection and affordable space drop way down for these folks, which was interesting, and not what we anticipated and not what we heard in listening sessions, but this group was really focused on getting the financial support and local investment. So now we went into, within each of those big buckets of themes, we had specific resources that we asked them to rank. And so within that, mentorship, within networks and connection, was overwhelmingly the one that people were saying was most important across the board. And that was the same across different career stages as well. Within marketing support, local resources and platforms to provide artists, local resources and platforms to promote artists in the community. This was by far the most overwhelmingly, like, this is what we want sort of thing. So this is something to note. Nobody wants help finding independent contractors. Financial support and education, business planning and support for equipment and material purchasing were up top. Heard a lot in the listening sessions about cost of inflation, cost of living, that equipment and materials has become, it was already expensive and now it's really, really expensive. So I think that came through here in this question. Interestingly, emergency funding pretty overwhelmingly was not seen as more important than some of those other options there, which was also a bit of a surprise. Local investment in local artists, people want to see their local institutions prioritizing local artists. They want to see opportunities from the local arts organizations. And they want the opportunity for them to be able to grow their career and have recognition in their local communities and not have those organizations constantly seek resources from outside. So we heard that in listening sessions, and I think that came through here as well. Early career opportunities, it was interesting that came in as least important here. I think that one merits a little bit more investigation because that was surprising to me to see. Affordable and accessible space, subsidized performance and exhibiting space was ranked very highly. And production rehearsal space, if you add the blue and orange together, was also ranked pretty highly. But the performance and exhibiting space was pretty high. So it's great that there's places like Constellation where people are able to do this sort of thing. I think this is very representative here. Okay, so a lot of numbers, a lot of stuff. A couple key things to just walk away from, I think, with this. And this is the key findings by geography and career stage. Local arts organizations are a key resource. Artists lean on them. They are a important thing for artists to have in their communities. Rural artists rank networks and connection equally important to financial support and education. And that we didn't see that in the more metro areas. So that's something to keep in mind with working with different geographies. Artists at more advanced career stages rank networks and connections as least important. Interesting to see that. Emerging artists value affordable space more than any other groups. That speaks to what Holly was talking about earlier with emerging artists wanting a place to go, wanting a place to make their things, perform. And so that was reflected here in the survey. Key findings in the aggregate, many artists are generating some revenue from their work, only 10% were hobby. So people are bringing in money from what they're doing. A majority of artists view themselves as entrepreneurs and small business owners, but are not accessing those resources. And financial support and education was by and large the top need that was expressed. And then local marketing platforms stand out as a highly desired resource that really stood out. And so what that looks like, I think, will be a discussion moving forward. So that is what I got. Thanks for bearing with me. I know that was a ton of stuff. We're going to continue to work on this, and Jordan will talk a little bit about next steps.
Thank you. Kudos to Eric for analyzing all of that and pulling all of those important pieces out. It was a very heavy lift, and I'm very grateful for him doing that. However, next steps, we got to keep this train going. We've been doing this community engagement research piece for like the last, 9 months to a year or so. And I'm really excited that we took the time to do that a robust amount. Because it's very important to make sure that the people that you're serving, people you're creating programs for are greatly informing that. So we are going to start our design process now. We have the information we need. Like Maya said, we'll be taking some meetings with the IEDC to just go ahead and make sure that what we heard, we meet. Elaine Rogan-Luttrell, who helped us design those demographics, is also helping us design those programs as well. And then we're targeting for program implementation, the resources, people, things that we need to go ahead and kick this off. And we're hoping for a kickoff in fall of this year.
And Jordan, remind me, I think you're thinking that we could see a rollout of maybe a multi-year rollout potentially.
For sure.
Yeah.
I don't think that this is just going to be one blanket program at all. We're going to try to roll out a couple different things in a couple different avenues and roll them out over time. But that first response and that first thing that we do will kick off in that fall quarter. Any questions?
No, but you're saying that you're gonna have a survey every year?
No, so this survey and this research is going to inform the programs that we design. So like on-ramp, like we talked about, lifelong arts programming, those are the only two robust programs that we have for artists right now. So because of those are our only two programs, we need more. They need more. What are you going to do? And so this informs what we're going to do.
Okay. Yeah, I love surveys. I think this was really well done, and I don't know, it's the meat to me that says, who are we and what does the artist need in this community? And I'll say this, that last night I went after dinner, went to meet an artist that I've never met. And fantastic artist. Bottom line gets down to, he had no idea about IAC. He had no idea about going to see an SBDC. I find this in the music world too, because I work with a lot of groups, a lot of bands in my area. And they don't really have a clue. I have to explain to them, this is the music business. They spend 99% of their time working on their craft. 1%, if that, maybe thinking about the business, right? And so, I started to put little checklists together for the band. Hey, have you done this? Have you done this? Did you do this? Did you do this? If they kind of follow that plan of one movement a day, that puts them closer to the business part of being a band, right? And so some practical ways, because what I found, I'm pretty good at balancing. I'm a 50-50 guy, 50% art, 50% business, right? I'm right in the middle. I feel good about that. And it works well. But what I find is most people aren't. So they have no idea what to do about the business part of what they're doing. And I don't necessarily mean, maybe not financial even, but just being aware, right? What support do they have? And so I find that with almost every artist that I deal with. I'll say, tell me about what are you doing in your business part? They're not. They're sitting in their room creating art.
Yes.
And most of the world never sees it, right? Which is crazy to me. I mean, I get it, but I love surveys, and I think they're a very good way to figure out who you are kudos.
No, thank you. I think that discipline piece is very important. So that piece we're gonna pull out when we start implementation, so that it speaks to those different disciplines and how they learn and how they receive information for sure. Because like you said, people are in their craft, the business is foreign, and so speaking to how they learn, how they create is gonna be very instrumental in making sure they know the business side.
I think this wonderfully informs arts education as well.
Yes.
I think it helps to consider, we're not just creating students, we're preparing students to move into professional fields.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and take our 15-minute break.
Sure.
15-minute break. Oh, God, now I have to do math. We'll be back at 10:36, and I assume maybe Holly could tell me where the restrooms are.
Yes, you're just gonna go out the door, make the left, or there before you get to the next set.
Excellent. Thank you.
What day is it?
I will.
Eric has the early look at the Arts Project Support Fiscal Year 25 application numbers and a reminder of the review process.
Okay, all right, super quick.
I mean, you sort of hinted at earlier.
I did, yes.
Just a little.
So we had some Foundant technical problems about a day before the deadline.
And Foundant is,
Foundant is our grants management system that accepts all the applications, and it crashed entirely. So we extended the deadline. It's now due the 14th, which is it's coming Thursday. And I'm happy to say that we've got 323 applications sort of in the queue. There were 235 last year. That's over a 70% increase.
Great.
We've got 126 already submitted at this point. So we're expecting a pretty big turnout with how the numbers are looking right now. And so what will happen is folks will submit, work with our regional partners to get those things all processed and ready to go, get panels all set up, and the panels will be last week of April, first week of May. And then in June, we'll come to you with the funding recommendations. So that's where APS is. So we'll know the final numbers next week, and we'll be sure to send around some sort of update on that.
and would you remind folks quickly, when you say panel, what do you mean?
Panel, a review panel. APS, we usually aim for 6 folks that will read the application and score them and provide comments, and they will meet on a live Zoom meeting to discuss the application together during those panel weeks at the end of April, beginning of May. And we just have APS this year, just as a reminder. So those are the only ones that are being paneled.
And you have multiple panels, so you, like, if you serve for a person who serves on the panels, they aren't reading all.
Correct.
200.
A lot of regions, every region will have a group of panels.
Got it.
Because of the increase in applications, some regions may have more panels than usual this year. But we usually try to keep the application number around 15 per panel so that we're not inundating folks with 20, 30 applications to read.
And just for knowledge, how does somebody become a panelist?
Yes, we do have a form on our website. People can fill out a panelist interest form, but the regional partners work in their regions and outside the regions and with each other to recruit panelists. We really are looking for folks with a diversity of backgrounds in terms of their artistic discipline, experience, geography, all of that stuff. So we're really trying to make sure that panels have a variety of perspectives on there to have good discussion and a thorough review of all the applications and the projects. So I encourage folks, if you know people who would be great panelists, please feel free to send them our way because we'll be needing them.
And then Eric, if you'd say a word or two about scoring and then kind of what happens after that.
Okay, yeah, well, I really should have maybe done more.
That's all right. It's all good.
Thank you.
It's all good.
I appreciate it. Scoring, so they'll go in the online system, they'll score it. And then once we have all of those scores combined, each of the panelists score it, and then the average of all of those 6 panelist scores becomes a score for the application. You need a 75 or higher to be eligible for funding. We'll put all of those scores in the relevant information in the new APS framework that we've talked about at a previous quarterly business meeting. And then when we get to the funding recommendations, we'll talk about the framework a little bit more and how it works this time around. And that will help us with the funding recommendations that we'll present to you in June. Did I miss any other?
Got it. And we will remind you of all of this and how we got to this point again in June. It's just, I think it's helpful to level set about how this all happened.
And it helps me to hear it multiple times, because eventually I'll remember it. Thank you.
I think it's good for all of us.
Great.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maya, you have a update for us on the Lilly Endowment and Ready 2.0?
Yes, so I have not spoken about this in many meetings, so I'm going to take the opportunity to kind of give the commission kind of a 40,000 foot view of kind of what's happening related to Ready 2.0. And what is Ready 2.0? Ready 2.0 is an acronym. I cannot remember what it stands for, but it is an
Economic Development, something.
Initiative 2.0. It is administered by the Indiana Economic Development Corporation, whose name
we referenced earlier.
we talked about them in a previous episode. Yes, you've heard about them. They are the state's they're a quasi agency of the state charged with economic development. And they have, over a period of now several years during the Holcomb administration, launched this regional economic development initiative that helps drive investment, quality of life infrastructure, all sorts of things in 14 regions of the state that are each governed by a regional economic development organization, agency, so forth. We had Ready to 1.0, which some of those projects are still in play. And now in the last legislative session, the budget session, additional funds were provided for Ready 2.0, which is sounds kind of just what it is, right? Set phase 2 of regional economic development investment. And that process is ongoing. Since last summer, we have been working with the Indiana Economic Development Corporation on a request to the Lilly Endowment for funds to do two things. One, to aid in blight reduction across the state, blight remediation for buildings, primarily commercial buildings across the state, and then for arts and cultural investment. And at the State of the State address, Governor Holcomb announced that the Lilly Endowment was going to be granting $250 million toward this two-part initiative, $185 million for blight reduction and $65 million for arts and culture. I know that he announced it at the State of the State because Ann texted me because I was not watching State of the State. I also know he announced it because Dave Heist emailed me. So I know that too.
We're looking out for you.
Yeah, well, looking out for us. What is that going to mean for us is that we will be working with the Indiana Economic Development Corporation in the rollout of the arts and cultural investment. These funds from Lilly will be going to IEDC and distributed by IEDC for projects that are arts and culture in nature and that are proposed by these 14 regional economic development organizations across the state. Guidelines for this program have not yet been announced, but you see on the screen some examples of what IEDC will be looking for, and that we will be working with them on, finalizing the guidelines and then also supporting the review of the proposals and so forth. There are two really important words to be thinking about as we think about these investments. One is transformative. IEDC, and in particular Lilly, focused on transformative investments in regions across the state in arts and culture. And that, again, can be manifested in lots of different ways. Transformation in one region looks very different from transformation in another region. Another really important component of these dollars is that sustainability of the effort will be an important criteria in evaluating these projects. So how is the community or the region or the entity going to be able to assure that whatever is invested in is sustainable over the long haul? Because we are IEDC and Lilly are not looking for sort of one and done sort of initiatives. That being said, we're very early in the process and what all that's going to look like is still to be determined. Timeline, again, guidelines could potentially roll out here by the end of March. Proposals, first round of proposals could be in by end of April, early May. Again, we will have a role in supporting the development of those proposals and then also the vetting of those proposals. And as it is currently envisioned, regions can propose anything from I've got a great idea, I don't know quite how to build it out, to I've got a shovel-ready project. So it's been our intention, recognizing that some of our regions are in different places that relates to arts and cultural development, that some of them are going to need some time to build out ideas. And how can we help support that work? Some of that 65 million will have some capacity building opportunities associated with it. So as Jordan and Eric were talking about related to how do we scale up small business development centers to work better with creatives? How can we do, as Mark talked about, related to building out skill building for particular sectors of creatives around the state? Some of this money could be deployed in that way. So we're still very early phases of sort of figuring out what that's going to look like, but there will be a statewide capacity building piece, which we are so grateful for because it will go way beyond our capacity as individual staff, not beyond our desire to be supported, but our ability as 11 erstwhile souls to do that work on behalf of the state. So we will be also pulling in probably some national organizations to help us potentially, but then also some statewide organizations to help us. So I know I'm laying a lot out on you here, but wanted to sort of give you a sense, because you may hear from, as this becomes more widely known, you may hear from organizations. And what our watchword for those organizations, if they should contact me, and I will direct them to their regional organization. And we will be providing some training and orientation and support to those regional economic development organizations about how to work with the creatives in their communities, how to work with our regional arts partners, how to work with the existing arts organizations and creatives and so forth. So there is going to be some training and skill building for those 14 regional organizations that we will be playing a big role in. Chad, if I do have a question.
Yes. Is this process gonna be, the distribution of it look like I know they're using the regions, or you said that the 14, is it going to look similar to that process? Are they gonna, or do we not know yet?
Yeah. What I can tell you,
That'll be interesting for the folks that you just named who may need lots of introductions.
Right, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. So as it's currently envisioned, regionals would propose up to 4 projects per region. And that's as it's currently proposed. That being said, we also envision the potential that there could be multiple rounds of these investments, because it's unlikely, I think, that we will see. It's going to take us a while to get there for some regions. And so could see a situation where a region maybe only has 2 projects and they need some time to develop 2 more.
And that's up to 4 arts and culture projects specifically.
Yes. And so this money is not part of the 500 million that was allocated for Ready 2.0. This money is in addition to that.
If there has been, and you probably, so if there are projects in Ready currently that have a arts sort of focus. Thanks. Are they going to remove those or
That's not my understanding.
Okay.
Yes. And yes, so it won't be an either or from my very thin understanding at the moment. I also know, let me rephrase that. I've also heard and been told that some projects that have had previous investment via Ready that are arts and culture in nature could potentially also be funded by this as well. So there could be some additional funding potentially, but again, highly focused on a transformative and sustaining. Sustaining is a really big piece of this. So, but yeah, great questions, Chad, and you and I maybe I'll sidebar a little bit because that's
spending a lot of time in Ready.
Yes,
Especially for folks who have gone through 1 and 2, that'll be an interesting process in different regions.
Yeah, a lot of skill building that we'll be doing, and we anticipate that and we welcome that. And we could not be more grateful, obviously, to the Lilly Endowment for this transformative gift, and then obviously for Indiana Economic Development Corporation for including us and having a role in doing this work going forward. So it's going to be a wild ride, but it's going to be exciting. So great way. Yeah, just want to give everyone a briefing just because you might hear it in the chatter.
Great, thank you. Sherry Wright with our Regional Arts Partnership Consortium report.
Hello, everybody. I'm Sherry Wright. I'm co-chair of the Regional Arts Partners for the next couple of years. And Kayla from up in South Bend and I are co-chairing, so we're kind of alternating our meetings as far as attending. And so I'm really happy to be here. And I have to say that I'm really sorry that this is the first one I've ever been to. I've never been to one before. And so, it's great.
Welcome, we're happy to have you.
Thank you. And it's embarrassing because as I was telling a few other people, and Scott knows, I've been around since the beginning of the partnership. So there's probably, that doesn't speak very highly of me, but nevertheless, I will redeem myself. But so I'm kind of reporting, giving you an update on what the partnership has been up to since Kayla reported to you in December, I guess it was. So I'd be remiss if I didn't kind of follow in Eric's reporting and say that we are in the throes of grants and just went through the very interesting few days of the system crashing and me not being, it was like, oh my God, what's going on? And I was having problems with Facebook and this and that. It's like, the end of times is here. So anyway, we were so happy to get back on track and as Eric reported, I am almost double in my region the number of APS applicants, Arts Project Support applicants this year. And I think the other partners have reported that they are also seeing those numbers increase. So that's a real interesting thing and a lot of new applicants, which is wonderful. I just told Lydia, I got one from Vermilion County, one of my unfunded counties. It just popped in yesterday and I'm going, oh my gosh. And so I immediately emailed this person because I had done a workshop for them in North Vermilion. I said, whatever you need. I will I want to see that. I want you to submit, hit the submit button. So anyway, so we are, obviously going to be busy reading a lot of applications and hoping that we can push them through the system as complete. And we're all finishing up putting our panelists together that will be reviewing for us. And we've got to have them all ready and reported to Eric by March 20th. So obviously we're very busy. Some of us have an easier time than others. But yeah, we're always looking for new people interested in serving as panelists. I must say the Zoom aspect of it has really opened it up for us because we can now, I can have panels from anywhere. I had a panelist in North Carolina not too long ago. She was actually a former Terre Haute resident, but yes, it's great. It's really helped a lot in the process of securing good panelists. I think also we will be, the panelists will be trained March 25th and 26th. I think 26th and 27th.
Yes.
Okay, and so that'll be done, and then we'll get the process going, and we start with the panels April 23rd, I believe, and I think that's right because I'm first. Somehow I always get to be first, it seems, that whatever. So looking forward to that, and it's always a fun time. It's always a time of where the panelists love it because they learn so much. It's such an educational process to be a part of that. So it's always fun, and the only thing that my panelists don't like is that since we don't do it in person anymore, I don't feed them snacks. Anyway, so we're in the chute here for our regional arts grants. The partners did put together the training sessions for the Arts Project Support. We did a training session for first-time applicants and for returning applicants. We did that in mid to late January, I guess that was. And we're both well attended. So I guess that was a good sign that maybe we had generated some new increased interest. One of the really fun things that's happened, in the last couple of weeks, on February 23rd, we had this amazing retreat. And so that was all the RAPs, leaders of our regional arts project, regional arts partnership, and then the people who actually are like me doing the work. And we had some breakout sessions, we had some together sessions. It was, I think, such a good thing to do because we have had a lot of turnover in our partnerships and with not only the people in my position, but also the actual who's serving as the partner. We've got new partners. And so we started out with just a history and why is this partnership? What's important about it? What does it serve? Why is it good for us? Why is it good for the IAC? So it was a great way to start the day. We also talked about the history and all of that. We talked about the value of the partnership. Lots of good discussion, lots of good ideas and thoughts coming from both the leadership side and the RAP side. How we looked at the new strategic IAC strategic framework together, which which I love. I just love this. This is my favorite thing in the world that you've ever done. I love it. It's just so fair, you know, and it's like, look, this is it. So I really, really like that a lot. We've got a little bit more information about the artist needs assessment, and I want to point out, and I think most of the RAPs will agree, and maybe particularly those of us who are actually regional arts organizations who have always served, you know, a certain number of counties, that as important as it is to get the results from the artists, it's equally important for us. Because I have learned so much from my artists who participated in that, from the survey results. It's like, okay, we need to connect with the small business, you know, people. And we did with our creative entrepreneur training workshop way back a couple years ago, but we need to keep doing that so we can keep putting these people together in the same room. And I will say that all of our artists were very interested in this kind of networking thing. And they're used to seeing the people that they see all the time, the artists in their towns or whatever. They love the cross-regional, you know, like putting all of the Green Guzzle and Sullivan, blah, 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 artists in a room to talk and find out what they have in common and what they don't. So kudos for doing this. It's just, it's going to be a wonderful tool, I think. And obviously, perhaps more funding for our artists. What else do I want to talk about? That same day, we also did a little deeper dive with Eric with Founded. It's always kind of nice to continually get some education about that system, and for me in particular. But it was a great day, a very great day of bringing all of our partners together, bringing those people who lead the partner organizations. And so I think we were very grateful for that. I think all of us benefited a great deal. I also wanted to know, for you to know how important I think the bi-weekly RAP meetings via Zoom have been. We've been doing that since the pandemic, and it is just a wonderful opportunity that we share and that we just keep ourselves so much better informed, I think, than we used to be. And you know, having that two-way conversation with the staff and then with amongst the partners ourselves, even though we're not in person, I think we have wonderful, meaningful conversations. I think that's about all that I would report on for this past from January up until now. We're off to a great start. We're ready for grants. We're ready for new programs. We are very excited in our region, and particularly Terre Haute, particularly Arts Ileana, which is the regional partner for our region, that we're hosting on-ramp. And so we are working with Jordan. We're really excited about that. Also with our artist, Emily Bennett, who did those wonderful Governor Arts Awards. I have to put in a plug for her. She's the best artist. She's just the greatest person. And so we're so excited. We're securing our venues and all of that right now. And so that's a real plus for us. And it's a great program. We've seen great things come out of it. So I think that's about it. Thank you.
Sherry, what a delight to have you. Can't wait to have you back. Thank you. Next up, John Kay with Traditional Arts Indiana.
Good being here. Welcome to Bloomington. I'm a professor also here at Indiana University. And having a quasi on my home turf, I live over in Brown County. The Arts Commission asked me to tell you, kind of update you about our apprenticeship program.
If you would you maybe start with a little bit about who TAI is and what our relationship is, since we've got commissioners that are still a bit newish.
Thank you. Yeah.
Great. Traditional Arts Indiana is a statewide folk arts program, a traditional arts program. We receive our funding from the Indiana Arts Commission as a partnership between the Indiana Arts Commission and Indiana University. A good portion of that funding is actually pass-through funds from the National Endowment for the Arts. And every state is required to have a folk arts component to that. Some places that's a standalone 501c3, some places it's housed in state government, some places it's housed in state humanities councils, and some places it's housed in state universities. Ours is because Indiana University has a internationally known folklore program, it seemed appropriate for the state to partner with that program. And because of that work, we've actually been fairly successful at training future state folklorists who have gone on to work in Mississippi, Maryland, New Hampshire, Florida. Most of those are, well, all of those are West Virginia are my former graduate assistants, who cut their teeth on working here in Indiana to go to those other places to do this work. So Traditional Arts Indiana does this very significant work, partnering with the Indiana Arts Commission and the Indiana Humanities Council, or do some other work with them, with the National Endowment for the Arts and Indiana University. One of the programs of our work, perhaps the most significant program we do, is our apprenticeship program. And the apprenticeship program is really about seeding the next generation of folk and traditional artists, making sure that community-based traditions continue on to the next generation. Should say something about folk and traditional art. I throw that out there and sometimes people don't quite understand. These are community-based cultural practices, informal knowledge that passes from one generation to the next. That can be passed along through community traditions, can be passed on through family traditions. Those can be things that are passed on between occupational traditions. And often, most of the time, these are not things that are taught in university settings. These are things that are learned informally from one generation to the next.
Like what?
So you're down in Jeffersonville area. We work with Mike Cleveland, bluegrass fiddler.
Sure.
You can learn Suzuki violin, but bluegrass fiddling you learn in the parking lot or in the community jam sessions.
Good.
If you want to learn to, you can take music classes, but if you want to learn to play gospel piano, you're going to learn that in church, sitting alongside somebody. If you want to learn to make art design, you can go to art school. But if you want to learn to do quilt making and the tradition, the cultural practices associated with that, those aesthetics are often passed within a community tradition. So these are this kind of informal, important cultural knowledge.
Do you consider traditions in that next to?
Food traditions, many states do food traditions. I would love for us to do that. I don't know how the Arts Commission would feel about that. I'd have to. Yeah, but in many places, I should just tell, I'll do a little forward thing. I showed up to do a site visit this week, Wednesday, with a master chin weaver, Burmese weaver, backstrap weaver. I thought I was showing up to work with this one weaver and her apprentice. I got there, there are like 5 different weavers weaving there, all set up in this one place. There's someone cooking Shan noodles in the kitchen and teaching other people how to do those foods. When we talk about like food traditions and cultural traditions, often these are rooted in social life. They're not abstracted out, oh, I'm doing art. And that's why a lot of the people, when we work with them, don't necessarily identify themselves as artists. They're just working in their community.
Right.
They're doing those sorts of things. And so the apprenticeship program is a way for us to fund individual artists. But in a very real way, it's about funding communities. Because we fund an individual artist to pass on their traditional knowledge to the next generation in hopes that we can continue these kind of important cultural practices within those communities. And it's also a way for us to tell communities, yes, we see you and we value you and we're working with you. At any given time, Traditional Arts Indiana, we do our call for proposals in the fall of the year. We tell people usually right around the December, end of the year time. And then we start an apprenticeship cycle in January, and it runs 9 months to a year. So at any given time, any fiscal year, we have usually 6 to 7 people in cohort, as we call them, but we have two cohorts kind of running simultaneously for at least half of the year. And so right now we're finishing up our work with the 23-24 apprenticeship teams. We've just kind of finished that up, and we're starting our work with our site visits with the 24. What we end up doing is we do the workshops and the solicitation of proposals in the fall. As I said, we review those, get past recipients, we get significant community scholars, people usually related to some of the applications that we've received as far as, so they have knowledge of those cultural traditions, so it's not us picking them, but we're actually picking people that might understand Chinese arts or ballet folklorico in the review process. And so we do the review. And then once they're selected, we convene people via Zoom, and we do cohort meetings, and we do those about 4 times a year where we bring everybody together. We also do site visits where I go and I do interviews with these people, kind of making sure things are progressing, helping solve any problems that may happen. But also we believe in doing important cultural documentation. We want to learn about these community forms. We want to find out the role that these traditions play in that community. So we document them. We hire a professional photographer, Greg Whitaker, that's worked with us for several years, to go and photograph these people working, so they get really good photographs of their work and of the apprenticeship, and we have a really nice documentation of that. And then we write up profiles, biographies about the master artist in relationship to the apprenticeship. And then we, every other year, we do a big award ceremony where we convene them all together. This will be an on year this year. And we produce a catalog basically that tells those stories that we present. We print extra copies so they can take these back to their communities. They can give them out to people in their community when we do that. So little reminder, last year, our recipients included people like Sam Bartlett, old-time mandolin player who was teaching contra dance music here in Bloomington. We had Tony Dickerson in Indianapolis, an African-American quilt maker, coordinates a quilt guild up there in Indy. We had Emily Guerrero, Day of the Dead altar maker from up in Fort Wayne. We had Natalie Kraychek from here in Bloomington, a Ukrainian Zanki artist. We had Denzel McKim, a wood carver, wooden chain carver from down in Harrison County. We had Joe Rice up in Elwood, Indiana, who does glass work. We had Peggy Taylor down in Perry County, Posey County, doing weaving. We had Janie Wyatt, an African-American quilt maker with the Sisters of Cloth up in Fort Wayne. She's the second of quilt makers we've worked with from the Fort Wayne group up there that's been in the apprenticeship program. And we had Pian Ki, a Hakka or Chin weaver in that program as well. This year, we funded fewer of them because we're trying to, it's a lot to try to get around to all of these people. We're still trying to do some specific outreach in specific communities. But we work with Becky Sprinkle down in Lawrence, and her apprentice is in Washington County, one of the counties we're seeking to serve. And they're doing jam music, old time music jam, which is really big in the kind of Washington County, Orange County area. And that's where Becky is from originally. Marlene Gaither from down in Floyd County, our first application for Floyd County, does traditional weaving and has been weaving for over 60 years. Is teaching that in her community. We had Quan Hui. Quan is a Chinese lion dance practitioner, and he's teaching lion dance to 2 apprentices in his community. I've been up to Indianapolis for more Chinese New Year celebrations this last month than I knew even happened. And so that's been really great to kind of connect with that community. That was really a 2-year process. One of the things in doing this work that we find is we have to do, it takes a while to kind of do outreach, and you tell people about doing this work, and then you get them to apply for something maybe, but sometimes it takes 2 years. I've been trying, this is my 3rd year trying to work with the Pokagon Band of the Potawatomi to get applications from there. So it sometimes takes some additional time to do that. We also have Pina Sung, who's the weaver I told you about there, who's doing backstrap weaving and teaching, as we said, supported her to do one, but she was so excited that she was getting picked to do this, that she actually picked up 4 additional apprentices that she's just doing as part of this. So it's really exciting. And there's a place where I think that there's a real need to do some community work, because they need a place for women to come and learn. This is a very gendered tradition. They come together and they weave, and when they're weaving, they're not just making art, they're building community, they're dealing with important issues that are in their community that these women face. Many of them don't drive, and so they have to depend upon other people to do this work. And so there's a great need in that community for that. In addition to Pina Sung, we funded Xiaomin Huang. Xiaomin is a well-known in the Chinese American community for his calligraphy and painting in the Carmel, Indianapolis area. But he's teaching stamp making, the stone carving of the chops, where you sign your calligraphy work, a very specialized skill and an ancient skill. And he's nationally, internationally, perhaps considered a master at doing that. So we're very excited to have him in this program. We also, down in Spencer County, our first Spencer County funded traditional artist, we have Sister Gina Weissel. She's a nun down at St. Meinrad, and she does icon writing or icon painting down there. And so this is our first icon painter in doing this work. We have 2 people who are repeats for us. We have Jim Smoke, who is teaching bluegrass banjo again. Kind of seems appropriate since he got a Governor's Sparks Award last week. We were going to tell him no when he asked again. And then the other is Larry Haycraft, a net maker from down on the Wabash River. And this is Larry's actually 3rd time in this program. And I cautioned the reviewers. I said, do we really want to do this? And the thing that they unanimously told me was, this is a tradition that if we don't intervene now, it could very well be lost in the near future. This is something that's significant here in Indiana that we want to make sure continues. We want to continue to fund that. And so that's the cohort for the 2024. Happy to take questions, comments, anybody about the work that we're doing on this front. If you don't understand it or want to hear more about it.
I'm curious to know, you mentioned working with the Potawatomi to begin to cultivate that relationship and make sure that they are aware and understand that they're eligible for this type of programming. I found that when I've tried to push out this program in particular in Fort Wayne, there are a lot of people who may consider something like quilt making to be traditional art, but don't know if their particular brand of discipline, let's say, fits. Has there been virtual training or, you know what I mean, or some manner of outreach that says, as long as this is a cultural practice, and if we find more plain words for that, that this can be a fit for this program?
Yeah, we do outreach, virtual trainings. We also have done site visits with regional arts partners where we try to make that very explicit. But I'll be honest with you, you have to show up in somebody's home, and you have to talk to someone, you know, at the community festival. You know, why do we have 2 Chinese American artists this year? It's because the past couple of years, we've been doing outreach to that community. We went to the Chinese American Festival in Indianapolis and we were talking to people there. And so it's very much us showing up in communities and meeting people where they are. I've been talking, you know, think about David Martin, bead artist, tattoo artist, fine art painter is right now huge in the Indian art marketplace right now. I've been reaching out to him for several years, and now it probably won't happen because he doesn't need us anymore. He's like really, really big. But there are other members within the Pokagon band that I've been trying to reach out. We've had a few people from the Miami tribe that's been doing this work. And in fact, I nominated, well, I shouldn't say that. I'm not gonna talk about that because it's not a done thing yet, but I hopefully will be able to share some news about a couple of artists we're working with.
Are the virtual trainings on the website? Because when I look at this.
We did them, when we did them, they were earlier, but I guess we could put them on the website. They're on like pages that are like news, like here's the training. And when we did them live virtually, and so they're there. And so we're not soliciting right now. And so I don't know that they necessarily pop up, but I can definitely make them available there again.
I guess I'm trying to make it easy for me to share with people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if there's a virtual training and it's 3 clicks buried, you know what I mean?
Right.
They may or may not find that. But if it's embedded in the application even itself, like there'll be a training, if it's passed, the video's here. You know what I mean?
Right, as we make up the new application for this year.
Yes, tattoo artists are.
That language there at the beginning of that.
You know, yes. Yeah. Low riders are traditional art. Yeah, I don't know, just.
Yes.
A funky campaign.
Absolutely, right. And we have talked about, in our agency about the language that we can use as we talk about what is traditional.
Sure.
And so I think you'll be seeing some work from our staff related to helping translate that. So that people see themselves in this work.
Right.
Because I do think that's critical. And so we have talked about it internally and we're gonna do it.
Yeah,
So,
we love our
yeah.
rap, you know,
Yeah.
and we're okay, and I'm not
Yeah.
gonna say anything disparaging about our rap.
Yeah.
But I think some of the folks who do things that I think of as traditional art just aren't connected.
Right.
To the rap.
Yeah.
And so I'll post it, but then they're like, is this really me? And I just want to be able to point them to something that you guys put out there that says.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. And again, I want to shout out to John. Showing up's a big piece of it, for
Yeah.
sure. And language is a gateway to that. People, again, seeing themselves in that category. So
I'll do
I think
a
it's
Fort Wayne promo. I mean, I just want
Happily
to
come
that's all.
Fort Wayne and maybe we can do training together on
Yeah.
information set. And we can bring in some of the, because we have several people from Fort Wayne who have received it in the past.
Yes, would
We
love
can
that.
invite them there and have them invite their friends and stuff. So we can do, and we could record it. We could also do it in person or we can do virtual both.
Right on.
I'm there. Just let me know when.
I'm also wondering though, in addition, like a very short, brief video that shares like what the definition is and what it looks like, but also like the different iterations, like the low riders, like the quilters, like not the entire laundry list, but a lot of things so people can immediately go, oh, that's me.
Right.
And you guys could share out, because I feel like.
And with artist attention spans, that could be a TikTok. I mean, it could be a literal 2-second flash of just different professions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
These are all traditional artists, bam.
Right, yeah, something quick, easy, digestible, and that you could say like, that's, yeah,
100%.
perfect.
When we did our bicentennial exhibit, and then we later turned it into one of our traveling exhibits. We had a panel that basically said, who's missing? And it was, I think we had, Lydia, you might have helped me make that actually. I think we had like 15 different artists from 15 different communities from around the state. And then there was one block left empty and saying, who's missing, tell us.
Yeah.
So it's that, we tried, but we also know if we don't get in communities, they don't even know that we exist.
It's helpful to also to the commission to know like who they are for themselves, you know, so that if they know somebody that they have a relationship with, like, oh, I know so-and-so, they're a duck neighbor, they do this. And so like, hey, this might be really cool for you. And I think that could increase that network power beyond you to other like households because of the connections that this room has, which would be really great.
Great, thank you. Great conversation. Thank you for the update. We have nothing from our consent agenda. Move to the full agenda. Is there any old business or new business to come before the commission? Yeah. Oh.
Be rude. You have something. Oh.
Want to be able to see you.
I'll just be remiss if we don't highlight that a month from now to today, exactly 1 hour and 31 days, the eclipse is going to be happening across the state.
Yeah.
I know that a lot of our partners at Visit Indiana, Destination Development Corporation, Center for Rural Engagement, did 30 grants for rural organizations across the state, just to, you know, share those opportunities with your local community within your region and participate in one-on-a-lifetime opportunity that's going to be happening a month from today.
And just a further plug for your health and safety, please ensure that you get the appropriate glasses to watch the eclipse. If you don't, you might be sunblind about 12 hours later, so just make sure you get your glasses. And also understand that the roads are going to be very crowded as soon as the eclipse is over. So plan accordingly, please.
Madam Chairwoman, may I?
Yes, please.
Free glasses are available at White River State Park, and we're hosting a large free viewing festival during the eclipse. So please stop by.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jake. Yes.
If I could, I just want to say thank you again. The Governor's Award was an amazing event. Well done. Thank you all.
Totally agree. Anything else to come before the commission? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned as of 11:26. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next meeting is June 14th, somewhere in